Wednesday in week 4, based on Luke 14, focused on verses 25 to 33. A large crowd was gathering around him. Jesus turned to face them. "If any of you come to me," he said to them, "and don't hate your father and your mother, your wife and your children, your brothers and your sisters, yes, and even your own life, you can't be my disciple. If you don't pick up your own cross and come after me, you can't be my disciple. Don't you see? Supposing one of you wants to build a tower, what will you do? You will first of all sit down and work out how much it will cost to see whether you have enough to finish it. Otherwise, when you've laid the foundation and then can't finish it, everyone who sees it will begin to make fun of you. 'Here's a fellow,' they'll say, 'who began to build but couldn't finish.' Or think of a king on the way to fight a war against another king. What will he do? He will first sit down and discuss with his advisors whether, with 10,000 troops, he is going to be a match for the other side who are coming with 20,000. If they decide he isn't, he will send a delegation while the other one is still a long way away and sue for peace. In the same way, none of you can be my disciple unless you give up all your possessions." This is another time when you want to put your hands over your ears, as Jesus says some of the harshest things you've heard from him yet. Really, you think, if this was all he said, nobody would ever follow him. Hating your family, giving up your possessions, carrying your own instrument of torture. What on earth is he on about? Most Christians in today's world, and I suspect a good many of Jesus' own hearers, try to ignore or avoid this kind of stuff. That would be a mistake, albeit a natural one. Let's think about what Jesus was up against. He was announcing God's new way of running things. He was telling God's people that everything up to now had been preparation, but he was starting the real thing. And the hardest task for someone doing that is to persuade people to give up the preparatory stages they've become so comfortable with. What were those preparatory stages? For Jesus' people, ancient Israel, there were 2 stages in particular: family and land. Israel was identified as Abraham's family, a single ethnic unit. True, some people came in from outside, like Ruth in the Old Testament, but they were still basically a people defined by family identity. And they were also identified as the people who lived in a special land, that beautiful but highly contested small country in the Middle East. Again, by the time of Jesus, more Jews lived away from the land than in it, but they all knew that this was their real home. That was their ancestral possession, and woe betide anyone who compromised with it. Family and possessions, the 2 things Jesus now says you have to give up. God's people are being redefined, and these identity markers won't matter anymore. Cling on to them, and you'll be like people keeping the curtains closed when the sun has risen. That was nighttime. This is daytime. Jesus' challenge then comes to all of us at the point where we are tempted to settle down and be comfortable with the way things are. No, he says, that would be like someone wanting to build a tower or fight a battle without thinking out what's involved. You need to think through, to pray through, what it's going to mean to be a follower, a learner, a disciple. You don't want to be left high and dry when God's kingdom goes forward, and you turned out to have settled for something less. Ignatius Loyola, the founder of the Jesuit order, used to pray this prayer: "Lord, teach me to be generous. Teach me to serve you as you deserve, to give and not to count the cost, to fight and not to heed the wounds, to toil and not to seek for rest, to labor and to ask for no reward, save that kind of knowing that I do your will." Do you find this an easy prayer to pray? Talk to God about how that prayer makes you feel and what it makes you think.